fun tonight begins with prizes that we've got in store for you. So we've got heaps of prizes. I kind of went a bit prize crazy. And the first ones we're going to be doing are these beautiful laser cut map bookmarks. They have a picture of the map on it. It's essentially this bookmark, but you get this smoky laser cut one. So, Cass, you get to, everyone's got a raffle ticket, right? Yes. All right. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's very many in here. Everyone gets a prize.
D18?
D18. D18.
So you probably kid.
Oh, wow. Alrighty. Here you go.
We'll pack for them.
Thank you. And another. I like this cauldron.
D8.
D8. Well done. You're very welcome. Now you have to get a book to go with your bookmark. Okay, now, next on the list, we have this gorgeous little pocket map. It's nice and textured. You'll enjoy touching it. If you want to touch the big one, you can come up before it goes. No cheating, Cass.
No. D7.
D7. And then we have two little leather maps, or leather bookmarks. Maybe wrap them in tissue before you put them in your favourite book. They might turn it around.
13.
D13.
Oh,
Well done.
just one brush.
Well, yeah,
Good try, good try.
And D9.
Wow, you are cheating.
I know.
Cheating, no one's come from the same group. Here you go, Sam.
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. All right, and we've got two really big prizes.
Oh, she's finished with it.
No, we've got two really big prizes, but I was thinking first I might read the chapter of the book for you. Yeah, something I haven't done before, but I did practice a little bit yesterday. For everyone that hasn't gotten their book, we've got a new format, and you will now find images over the top of some of the chapters. And the back letter is much clearer. Every time you buy a book, or one of the first 100 here today, you'll not only get it signed, but you will also get this beautiful translation guide so that you can know what it's saying. Let's begin. Chapter 1, the right answers, the wrong questions. Wolflock leaned on the smooth grey tack rail, scoffing and rapping his long fingers irritably as the breeze flooded the letter clenched in his left fist. He thought it was an acceptable time to write to his little sister Mina, detailing the events of the last week, but he wasn't yet satisfied with the letter's contents. It had already been a dismally long 7 days on the Silver Ice Head, and so far he had minimal time to himself to do anything of true enjoyment. Apparently, when aboard the vessel, the captain required all the company to participate in activities. These included all manner of foolish social events through the day, like ball games, novel and history readings, evening dances, and deck picnic lunches. Initially, the promise of seeing the ship's specimens in varying dynamics gave Wolflock a newfound excitement, but it only took an evening for him to realise the crew and company were primarily average in all areas of life. The blanket of frustrating boredom shrouded him once more. I should never have looked without snuffle, he bemoaned, as he watched waves crash on the grassy banks in the wake of the ship. I could have continued to sneak out with Mothy's assistance and be free of these tiresome bonding activities. The edges of the dark blue river became increasingly mottled with autumn leaves, redressing the earth in her gown as the sleepy pink twilight lingered longer during each dusk and dawn. The very earth itself seemed to struggle to wake in the morning and crave an early night's rest as the days grew colder. A flash of movement caught his eye to the left, and he stood bolt upright, trying to glimpse the source. Nothing. It must have been a fish. He had been waiting to see the Maramuta creatures Grogan had spoken about, which remained the only reason he was outside and risking another social ambush, calling him to some other mundane engagement. He wouldn't have minded Mothy's company, as he got along with the lad very well, but there was no one else on the ship who was of any interest to him. Mothy wasn't educated in many academic schools of thought, but he had a refreshing perspective on life. He'd travelled a bit while he was younger, and he told Wolflock he'd gotten a short education in mining, blacksmithing, carpentering, farming, and tailoring. Everything practical and trade-worthy had at least been touched upon in his life, giving him a curious insight that Wolflock had fed off the many hours of entertainment. There was no reason to distrust his word, as he didn't appear to try and show off his skills, but rather just seemed excited to share his knowledge. He had unknowingly presented himself as so naive and genuine that Wolflock had no desire to deny his company. It was also helped that Mothy hung off every word Wolflock spoke, which was a pleasant change from the constant dismissal he received from the older passengers. He sighed and watched the pale bark maple trees trickle their leaves into the river that lashed against their roots. Behind the dining hall was one of the few places people didn't venture to often. Wolflock had felt that he could get some peace and quiet, but even in the serenity of the autumnal landscape before him, he couldn't silence the chatter of his mind. Had his father recovered from the political drama in Blue? What was Mina studying today? Was she tutoring her best friend? Had they done what he said and fed the good apples to the horses? How was Brennan, his horse? He wanted a way to contact home besides the letter in his hand that he wouldn't be able to post until they reached Erie in over a month. His heavy chest heaved a sigh, and he realised that he didn't want to be alone. But he didn't want to be with any of the passengers. He wanted to be with his family. He just didn't want to be in Blue. Wolflock continued to wallow miserably as he gazed out, catching another splash from an excited fish catching insects. The scent of bread being baked in the oven from the kitchen just behind him began to creep over his shoulder. He found it difficult to pretend he was in solitude as the song hummed by the day's chef in the kitchen came clearly through. Judging by the gruffness and the style of song, it was Goldenschultz today. The longer he waited for the song to pass and his silence to resume, the more the chatter of the passengers grew, as they settled onto their picnic blankets for the sunny deck lunch. The sound wafted around the dining hall on the wind like an irritating bug that aimed directly for his ears. His sulking didn't last much longer though, as Mothy bounced around the corner with a smile as bright as the midday sun. "Merry meet, Lockie," he chimed. Alright, do you want me to do the accents?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that bit.
"Merry meet, Lockie," he chimed. To his knowledge, Wolflock had never had a pet name before, and he wasn't entirely sure that he liked being called Lockie or not. He hadn't protested because although it was new to him to not be addressed as Mr. Felon or Master Felon, it wasn't entirely unpleasant. He also felt the need to have someone to talk to on the ship who at least appreciated his conversation. On top of his other reasons for liking Mothy, he liked that he admired Wolflock for his most prized possession, his wit. Marry me, Mothy. Marry me, Mothy. He sighed and folded his letter away into his trouser pocket. "Are you still being grumpy?" The blonde boy smirked and mirrored his position against the railing. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." Wolflock sniffed indignantly. Mothy drew a long, deliberate breath and exhaled as if he smelled the best baked goods in the world. "Isn't it incredible?" He slapped his hands on the banister. "I mean, just look at that. We're on a ship heading to another country. We get this amazing view, and we get to stay with such fabulous people. We are so very lucky. We don't even have to work. Wolflock raised a sharp black eyebrow. I fail to see how the scenery is lucky. People worked hard to get to this point in their lives. I don't believe that luck had much to do with it. Chuckling and shaking his head, Mothy closed his eyes and listened to the wind and water for another deep breath. You know, you have to stop being so grumpy. You're not making any friends being so foul, and everyone else being loud on deck and all. And not just you. Well, I was the one who found the snuffle. I'm the one who deserved the reward. They have gotten there to share it for a week, and now they should descend below deck until they do something of equal use. Wolflock grumbled and crossed his arms. The least the captain could have done is ask if I actually wanted to share it. They were all on here for 2 weeks and did nothing to rectify the situation. You should be content that you brought so much joy to the people here and benefited the whole ship. Isn't that reward enough? He asked maternally. Wolflock felt patronized that Mothy acted as if he was teaching him how to share. Well, frankly, no. He raised his nose. I thought they would just be they would be far more interesting company, but now it appears that they are just like the pluging common folk back home. Now I'm just hoping to get some peace and quiet and find a way to get the full run of the ship. All the ship for you will make you so much better than the common folk below. Mothy snorted dryly, looking at him with keener eyes than Wolflock had seen from him. Wolflock fell silent, feeling the sting of being reprimanded. He turned away, pretending to just watch for the Marramuti. Mothy chuckled and stepped closer, bumping his elbow into Wolflock's. Wolflock refused to respond. Mothy wriggled closer, and his whole arm was pressed firmly against his friend's rolled-up white sleeve. Wolflock caught him in his peripheries and turned his head sharply away. Childish, he sniffed, pulling a disgusted face in order to suppress a grin. Mothy caught it and snickered, pressing his arm even tighter and nearly pushing Wolflock along the banister. So, did you want to show me how amazing and brilliantly learned you are, my Duke? Wolflock rolled his eyes so hard his whole face moved with them, until they locked onto Mothy's glittering bluish-grey ones. He had noticed over the week that Mothy's eyes changed colour slightly from day to day. Sometimes vibrant sky blue, sometimes aqua, and sometimes hints of brown that glinted golden. The only people Wolflock had known to have had this phenomenon were seers, where people were gifted with an enhanced sixth sense of aura vision. But Mothy had laughed it off and scratched his chin thoughtfully when Wolflock questioned him about it, saying he didn't know anything about it. I told you not to call me by those titles. If you must know, my father is a lord. He owns a bit of land and residence on it. That makes him a lord. We're not related to the royal family in any clear way, I assure you. Mothy pulled his head back as if he'd just tasted something dreadfully bitter. Well, I certainly won't be calling you that. Anyway, lunch is nearly ready, and I wanted you to show me how you do your thing. My thing? Wolflock frowned as they began walking around the midship. Yeah, the thing you do when you look like a fortune teller, but really you're looking for all the bits of a person that they hadn't hidden, which gives away the secrets. I want to know how you do it. Well, dear Mothy, it's simply a set of skills of observation and deduction. One must glimpse the details, know what they mean, and then put the pieces together to make the whole story. Sounds easy, like a puzzle. More or less. Wolflock gave a half nod. Well, this will be a good test of your puzzle-solving skills. You can tell me about the other passages, and I'll tell you if you're right. The only people who've been on the ship longer than me are the crew. Wolflock found the idea intriguing, and a small smile crept onto his face. He could once again impress his friend and feel proud of his own abilities. How are you feeling? You can sit down on the floor if you like. As they approached the mid-deck, he saw some tartan-patterned picnic blankets as the crewman Godin brought out platters of hard cheeses, vegetables on skewers, and clipberry marmalade sandwiches. I can certainly entertain the notion. He sat down across from Mothy on the same blanket as Froderick, the rude coughing gentleman, his wife Fuji, and the Ulakenic woman Hachi. Merry meet. Mothy smiled to the group as he took a sandwich. Wolflock's going to show us his trick. Perhaps start with Froderick and Fuji. What's this now? Frederick's brow furrowed and his eyes shot around. Oh yes, a game! That would be delightful! Fuji giggled and laid her hand on her partner's clenched fist. Wolflock eyed them intently, Fuji smiling as if she was about to get her palm read, and Frederick glancing about with tight lips. Wolflock focused, and what he picked up on instinctually began to take shape. It was like looking at the pieces of a beautiful beetle for the first time with a magnifying glass. Every leg, hair, and piece of shell glittered before him and created an image of the whole being. Fuji sat with a straight back, prim and proper, her hands delicately laying across whatever she touched. Her eyes had a supple almond shape, and her cheekbones were high on her smooth face. Her boyish short brown hair was showing slight signs of new growth, and she had occasionally raised her hand to her shoulder as if to feel something. Her left hand sported the faintest skin where a ring once wrapped around her wedding finger, but her right hand did have a fine silver ring with a huge, clear, twinkling gemstone in it. Her nails were painted but had grown out, and the polish was very good quality, judging by the lack of cracks and persistent shimmer. Frederick, on the other hand, hunched his shoulders forward and his skin was more weathered than Fuji's. He'd clearly seen a lot more sun and work than his wife. He sported a detailed silver band on his wedding finger, as well as adorning his neck and wrist with thick gold and silver jewelry. Wolflock spied a glint of clearing under his coarse brown hair before a vein began throbbing in the sour man's temple. His mottled brown eyes and thin lips, overhanging eyebrows gave him a rather doltish appearance, even if he did wear fine clothes. His shirt was currently unbuttoned, but Wolflock couldn't mistake the crisp collar and precise cut of his tailor's family style. Stop looking at us, he snapped. Wolflock sneered. How am I meant to show Mothy what I do if I'm not able to do it? Anyway, he pointedly turned to his friend and waved his hand to dismiss the lesser man. Fuji here is one of the daughters of the noble family in Call. I assume it would be the Kosaki family, who immigrated from Call to sell grains and now controls the Corinth grain farming standards. My Aunt Leona often tells us she has tea with them. Are you Mothy's cousin? I used to love her embroidery. It was always the most beautiful at tea. Fuji chimed in with a glowing smile. Wolflock stopped and blinked at the interruption. I don't speak to my family much in Call. Oh, Fuji leaned away and averted her gaze. As I was saying, Fuji has been born amongst a circle of those accustomed to wealth and refined etiquette training. She was also engaged for many months, most likely to the son of another family who was believed to be of political or social advantage, but with whom she had only a passing interest in, if that. Her hair has been shorn off, so she would be harder to identify whilst leaving Hall, likely to have made her look like a young man or Frederick's brother rather than his wife. Then there's Frederick, who apparently came from whore breeding and earned his wealth, but would never be considered by one of the better families due to their distaste in new money. His defensive and overprotective nature all come from a place of insecurity, since he knows he'll never be accepted by those he covets the company and appreciation of so intensely. Due to this, it's likely that he was raised in the worst parts of Gaul, as shown by his typical thickly set brow and more squared features on his face. He also has a conveniently nasty cough, so I wouldn't be spending too much time near him for fear of catching his illness. Ha! Mothy laughed loudly, but Wolflock could see the strain on his face. Good one, Flocky! You're such a joker! Take no notice, Frederick. All the people from neighbouring blankets had turned to see what the crackle of anxious energy was, but turned slowly back to their food when Mothy spoke up. Fuji began cooing affectionately to her husband, drawing fiery redness from his face, as if her words were cool water. Did you just dismiss me? Wolflock asked incredulously, hurt that his friend would brush him off like that. Yes. Were you trying to pick a fight? Because that's how you pick a fight. When I asked you to show me how you use your smarts to figure things out, I didn't mean for you to be mean to anyone. Mothy shook his head apologetically. Besides, if you're going to aggravate someone, you should probably not do it to someone who's a head and a half taller than you. Brains always beat brawn, Wolflock retorted. Not when the brain is in a pampered 15-year-old, not when the brain is in a pampered boy of 15 summers, and the brawn is a man who had to fight for everything he got and work 3 jobs. I'd like to see him try. After a long pause, Mothy asked, "You don't speak to many people, do you?" "I'm sure I don't know what you mean. You asked me to tell you what I saw, and I told you. I did nothing wrong." He shrugged. It was of no consequence to him what Frederick thought. "Well, why don't you try and tell me something nice about someone else? What about Gloomy?" Mothy had caught her eye and waved. Wolflock raised his eyebrow. He knew a few things about Gloomy already, and he had walked past her room a few days ago, noting the typical, if not old-fashioned, business trunk, with bands carved with sigils of the goddess of fortune and protection wrapping around it. But it had been left open, with only a few items of clothing thrown into it. The case itself was very outdated. Most business people these days had more compartments for various items and a separate section for their own personal belongings. Gloomy frequently wore a gold-plated necklace and a copper bracelet, but both were tarnished, showing their true worth, and lighter patches of skin revealed where she had sold her other jewellery. Her skin was tanned from being in the hot sun of the south, but her broad shoulders and towering height told him that she was a native of Central Shirling. Say that 3 times fast. "I see nothing kind about lying for the sake of anyone's feelings. If I can see their secrets, then clearly they are not hiding them well enough, and my evaluation does them a service so that they may either come to grips with the reality of the situation or try to hide them more effectively." Wolflock drew in a breath and began his verbal torrent. "That being said, Gloomy is an incompetent businesswoman from Corsh, somewhere nearby, leaving after she fought with her family. And of course, because she comes from Central Shirling, her education has revolved around chopping trees and carving stone, which explains her business style being antiquated and holds no relevance to how business is performed in the sophisticated areas. Her tarnished jewellery only hides the lighter skin on which it was previously adorned, telling us that she had to sell the jewellery she wore rather than the wares that she meant to sell." Gloomy let out a choked cry and grasped at her wrists, trying to hide her shame, but Wolflock ignored her. It's likely that she purchased these items early in her journey and was unable to identify them as being in low quality due to having never handled such things before. She began in Shellenden, was forced to move north in order to try and establish her business after her ineptitude moved her closer and closer to home. Now, with nothing left, she is returning home to beg for more money or skulk back and do whatever her family demands of her. But let's be honest, it's probably a safer bet than venturing out again and trying her hand at another pipe dream. If she had left with her family's blessing, then she would have been able just to write them a letter and not return in person, wasting time and money. Gloomy's grey eyes became stormy with rage, and her bear-like face contorted into a snarl. Mothy's gaze darted back and forth with fear as he moved between Wolflock and the reddening Corshwoman. "Lucky, maybe no more," he swallowed. "What? You asked me?" Wolflock protested and banged his fist on the deck, making Mothy flinch. "It's my turn now. I get to pick someone. This is a grand game, a real kicker." Every person's eyes and ears were on Wolflock as he persisted with fervour. He would not be silenced. This was not to be Clue all over again. He would not be pushed around for the sake of others' games. Smiling smugly, his eyes focused on the Blickland sisters. "Ah, look there, Ungle!" The silent, muscular woman with skin like night. She never smiled, and she was never away from her sister. She was emblazoned with silver tattoos that wrapped around her like flames. Her tightly braided hair made her forehead stretch even further back, giving her a hawkish look. Her black eyes blazed around, burning anyone who appeared even slightly curious about her and her sister's presence. "Yes, that's her. Good work. Let's go get some food." But Wolflock couldn't care less. You can see by her disagreeable demeanour and taciturn attitude that she has many secrets, none of which she guards particularly well. Again, the education of the Blickland Forest is primarily survival and not as sophisticated as Shellen, Mirth, or Rotherna. She is guarding her sister from escaping again after she fell pregnant to a man who resided in Shellenden, which is where they boarded. The stretch marks on her hips and stomach gave away from pregnancy as being full term, but the customary midwife bracelet on her wrist with the infant bead shows that she has a very dear question to her. Where is the man and the child? The man clearly had no intention of honouring the woman or the child, the stress of which could possibly have caused a miscarriage or stillbirth, which is why there is no man or baby, and the sister is captively holding her to her family duties. As the Blickland folk suddenly leave their forest, I can assume your family lives in the southern border, which means that the man was travelling, which then tells me that this was a sordid affair, not approved by your parents, and the man believed it would be a very temporary thing. But what kind of parents don't approve of love affairs? Noble ones. Ungul and Una are the children of the Blickland noble families, and to prevent disgrace, Ungul, as the eldest child, went to drag her sister back to come hell or high water. The reason I know that, because older siblings always get that face of resentment for having to defend their impetuous youngers. Wolflock didn't know when he had stood up, but he found his arms outstretched and his voice growing louder, his tone becoming more commanding. He was putting on a show to shut down anyone who would tell him to be silent ever again. Finally, he turned back to Mothy, sneering down at him. He had won. He would not be silenced, and he had shown the ship his prowess. None of them could question his intelligence. None of them could tell him he was wrong now. Mothy looked like a ghost. His eyes were wide, and he looked terrified. But he wasn't frightened of Wolflock. He was looking past him, straight at Ungul. Wolflock turned to see Ungul rising like a dark dragon. Gloomy rose like a bear too, and Froderick like a pit bull. They had their hungry, raging eyes fixed directly on him, and they wanted blood. Lockie? Mothy gulped, and in one smooth motion he was crouched on his toes. The end of chapter 1. Oh, thank you for your information.